So now that we know that 100% the Browns aren't going to be getting J.J. Watt because he signed with the Arizona Cardinals, we have to move our sights onto other players. Who are the other players on the defensive side of the ball that might become available, similar to J.J. Watt, where he was a cap casualty slash release candidate? Who are those guys on other teams that can come in and help the Browns? Does it make sense for most of these guys? Well, we're going to go through a handful of these guys and break it down. So let's talk about it. But before I do that, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload a ton of off-season content coming, so you don't want to miss it. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to my dog check tier Patreon members, and as always, I start with Michael Matique, Rob Farron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, David Roth, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Keith Gerkak, Brad Calbo, Daylon W, James McGinty, Arenda Hall, Rex Kaufman, Chad Gimme, David Molinado, Andrew Sadejo, Dylan Hill, Josh Mendord, Eric Green, Jaleel Salim Jr., Martha Krusna, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Bobo Regretti, Anthony O, David Arndt, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Yo-Yo, Fight 3074, Andrew Hirsch, Hundo Magnifico, Paul Wilcox, Curtis Bayer, Batman, Rush Sharir, Barack Kumar, John Alver, Beerman 069, Masayua, Buds of Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, CK, Keith Anderson, Sean Barron, Gakus Pisano, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Billy, Michael Holden Acton, Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Swift, IT Rex, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Jesus Serrano, Chris Fones, Picktown Brown Backers, Matt Lloyd, Mark Kahn, Max Out Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for sticking with me throughout the off season. This has been a tremendous help. Again, guys, thank you so much, and I hope you guys continue to support, and I hope you guys are happy with how the videos have been coming out and the videos in general. But without further ado, let's talk about some of these cap casualties that the Browns can capitalize on. All right, so the first name is probably the most popular and obviously the most well-known name on this list, and it's going to be Von Miller. Now, Von Miller is an interesting one, right? Because he's Von Miller at the end of the day. He's a very good player, somebody who has a great track record. But you have to kind of understand that you're going to be paying about $10 to $15 million, and that's probably on the low end, depending on how hot the market's going to be for Von Miller, for a guy who's injured most of 2020 and also is turning 32 years old. But also he's Von Miller. Like, he's spun 8 straight years as a top 5 edge rusher on PFF. That is rare. I don't even think J.J. Watt did that. The last full season he played, he had about 8 sacks, 10 tackles for losses, and about 37 pressures. So still really good high-level play, not top 5 level play, but still really good quality pass rushing in his last full season. So I do think he's still good as a pass rusher, but also you have to keep in mind he's not the same type of versatile that J.J. Watt would bring. I think J.J. would have been a little bit of a better fit in this defense with what the Browns need because, you know, Von's much lighter. He's not an inside-out guy as much as J.J. is. He's more of an inside or outside and up guy, a guy who can occasionally help out and play in coverage, maybe do a little bit of stand-up linebacking, but not somebody who is going to be able to play all 4 positions on the defensive line, which J.J. Watt could do. But to be fair, the Browns do drop their ends out in coverage a lot more than you would think for a team that plays at base 4-3. And, you know, Von Miller is still a fit. He's still a very good pass rusher. He can play in a 4-3. He can play in a 3-4. I'm really not worried about that. So when it comes to Von Miller, this kind of boils down to a handful of things. Some things you like and some things you really don't like about signing Von Miller at this point, right? What you do like is that he's an athletic guy, a good pass rushing fit opposite of Myles. I talked about how the Browns need to get more athletic guys on the opposite of Myles Garrett to kind of take advantage of the landslide that goes his way. And also Von Miller, like J.J. Watt, is one of the few guys you can get your hands on potentially in the offseason that's going to command a colossal amount of respect from opposing teams, because at the end of the day, that's still Von Miller. You can't just slide everybody to Myles Garrett because it's still Von Miller. So that is what I like. What worries me is that he's been out for 2020 for a foot injury. He's an expensive vet who, especially if you're paying over $10 million for him, you have to be worried about an expensive vet, age 32, a pass rusher who has relied on his first step, has relied on his athleticism throughout the kind of bulk of his career, his speed, his bend, and everything like that. And it's a bit of a gamble giving that guy $10+ million a year to see if he can produce on the edge when you don't even know how he's going to shake back from this injury. This could be one of those kind of like peak enders for Von Miller, or it could be just a road bump for him. Like, both are on the table right now. I don't think either is off the table, but that's definitely a consideration when you're talking about bringing in Von Miller. Now, let's talk about the team that everybody wants to poach because they're in a terrible cap situation, and that's the New Orleans Saints. Now, the New Orleans Saints find themselves in an awful situation. They are way over the cap. Their quarterback just retired, and they are directionless. Like, they don't know if they want to continue to try to be good and keep Taysom Hill in that $16 million cap hit, or if they just want to cut bait and rebuild. If I were the Saints, I would cut bait and rebuild, but there are a few roadblocks to this because halfway through their roster, they're kind of built like a team that still needs to win now. Now, they have some guys that are going to be coming up on free cap hits that they're probably going to cut, like Quan Alexander and Demario Davis. Their linebackers, my answer is yes on both of those guys for the Cleveland Browns. Definitely think about bringing them in, especially Demario Davis. I feel like he would be a great addition. Cam Jordan's a name that's also popped up with the New Orleans Saints. And as much as I like Cam Jordan as a football player and his fit with the Cleveland Browns, I have to say no, right? Because yes, he is a good fit. He can play inside out. He's exactly what you kind of want next to Miles. But this is pro football, and in pro football, you have to worry about the cap space, and it ain't a good situation when it comes to Cam Jordan. One, he has $17 million in dead money. What that means is that the Saints can't cut him and save cap space. It's really not going to happen. So he's not going to be released on the free agent market, which means you would have to trade for him. And if you do trade for him, he's a $19 million cap hit, unless the Saints decide to take some of that, which is a huge yikes. So that alone kind of makes him not really feasible. Maybe if the Saints offered some assets and maybe Marshon Lattimore, it might make some sense, but without any maneuvering, it just doesn't, right? It's a good football fit. It makes a ton of sense until you try to work things out logistically, and then it becomes a headache and a nightmare that's just not worthwhile doing, because to get Cam Jordan, it would be more expensive than you would have to pay J.J. Watt or Von Miller. It would be more labor, and it would just be too much at that point to get a player who I think there's better options available in just a regular old free agency market, as much as I do like Cam Jordan. And I talked about adding Marshon Lattimore to that trade. Here's the thing about Marshon Lattimore, right? When I was starting to write this video and people were talking about the Marshon Lattimore trade, I was thinking in my head, no way the Saints do that. Marshon Lattimore, I'm thinking he's a lot like Denzel Ward, a top 10 corner, has been a top 10 corner for the last 3 years. And then I took a deep dive into Marshon Lattimore's numbers for the last 3 years of his career. And I guess I had just been on autopilot when it came to Marshon Lattimore, because I had saw the amazing rookie year. I had saw him be all pro, and I just assumed that's the guy he's been since 2017. But boy, he has not been remotely close to that guy that he was in 2017. And I worry that a lot of Browns fans think he's still that guy from 2017. Now, why do I say that? Well, let me make my case. All right, so when you look at Marshon's numbers, a couple of red flags, quite honestly, jump out. One, despite his targets going up each year, his interceptions went down. He had 5 interceptions as a rookie, and then he has only had 5 in the last 3 years combined, which is not good. In his first 3 years, he only gave up 5 touchdowns. 2020 alone, he gave up 7. That's not good. In his rookie year, he held quarterbacks who targeted him to an elite passer rating of 45.3. That is really, really good. In 2020, that number exploded all the way to 103.2. 3. Also in 2020, his penalties have been jumping. It jumped in 2019. It took a bigger leap. I think it went from 6 to 9 from those 2 years. So that is a concern. And then when you look at his 2020 season and you take away the name Marshon Lattimore and you compare him to somebody like Terrence Mitchell, they're remarkably similar. And I like Terrence Mitchell. I think Terrence Mitchell is a good player. But when we think of Terrence Mitchell and Marshon Lattimore, I don't think we're thinking of people who bring the same impact to a game and should cost the same amount of money. So that's another thing to be concerned about when you're talking about trading for Marshon Lattimore, because the reality is when you trade for somebody like Marshon Lattimore, who's young, on his rookie deal, there is kind of a implied long-term commitment to him that you're making. You're going to give him an extension. And the question you have to ask yourself is, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the play on the field the last 3 years, is Marshon Lattimore the guy from 2017 that he showed us he was in his rookie year, or is he the guy he's been the last 3 years of his career? Because the guy in his last 3 years of his career really ain't worth trading anything for, because you already got Terrence Mitchell on the roster, and that's essentially who Marshon Lattimore has been the last 3 years. So you have to ask yourself that question about Marshon Lattimore. I know a lot of you guys who watch this channel are Ohio State fans, probably did the same thing I did, right? Checked in on him in his rookie year, saw that he was really good, checked out, and now you see he's available. Now you want him, but you have to look at this a little bit more thoroughly. And boy, he's just not been Marshon Lattimore like we think Marshon Lattimore in the last 3 years at all. Now, Harrison Smith, I'm just going to say this off top. He is a major go. I would definitely go for Harrison Smith if he becomes available. He has a $10 million cap hit for 2021. There's no dead money, so if they need to clear up cap space in Minnesota, and it looks like they might, they can go ahead and cut him and be on their way. Now, they might restructure, who knows, but if he becomes available, the Browns need to jump on that as fast as possible. Since he's over 32, he's not going to be super expensive, so you can get him at that nice little $10, $12 million range. He has decent speed. He's a true free safety. He's versatile. He can play box, slot, and free safety, and he's still playing at a very high level. This last season, he only allowed 1 touchdown, 5 interceptions, a quarterback rating when targeted of 71.6 and 65.6 completion percentage. He's still very good. He's still a very good veteran. He's somebody who can help Grant Delpit get along as he tries to come back from his Achilles injury. Everything about Harrison Smith says if he's available, Browns need to jump on that. But those are the guys I'm looking at right now that I think could come available. Do you have people in your mind that you think could become available for the Cleveland Browns? Let me know down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.